Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Explore Informed live stream. If you've watched any of my videos, you've seen kind of the point of Explore Informed. The goal really is to give you all information, to kind of arm you with knowledge and as much information as you can so that when you go traveling next time, you go better informed. And in theory, if you have more information, you have a better experience. You can plan your trip better. You can travel better. You can just have a better time. So in that vein, or kind of in that light, today we're going to have a guest on the show, Christine Turner. She's a travel agent out of Canada. We're going to talk together about why you should use a travel agent. Kind of what are the perks of doing that, and what are the benefits of using a travel agent. So I'm going to bring her on now and let her introduce herself. And also, if you are in the chat, let me know, or say hello and tell us where you're from.
Hello.
Hey, Christine, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for hopping on.
No worries.
So I just gave an introduction, told the folks watching that at Explore Informed, kind of our goal is to give people information, right? And to give them access to knowledge so that they can travel better in the future. And I think that's what I want to talk with you about is, excuse me, the benefits of using a travel agent, right? And how it can make your travel planning and kind of the traveling, right, more enjoyable and just an overall better experience. So do you want to introduce yourself, kind of tell us where you're from and a little bit about your background, and then I can kind of tell them how I found you, if that makes sense?
Sure. Yeah, sounds good. So basically, I've been a travel agent here in Canada for 15 years. And really, I had no idea. I didn't travel much when I was young because nobody did. I mean, we went camping, that kind of thing. But once I hit my 20s, I started traveling more and really enjoyed it. And I had a boring old corporate job. And I enjoyed going on vacation, and we had lots of vacation time. So one thing that I found is I was doing lots of research on where we should go and what we should do. And I remember one time we went on vacation, and I don't remember where it was, but we came back, and I think it was Barbados or something. And people were like, "Well, did you go downtown? And did you go to this bar? They've got an awesome karaoke night." And I'm like, "No." Oh. And they're like, "Yeah, did you go on the catamaran ride? You know, they do this wicked catamaran ride. The water's so clear, you can see all the fish." And I'm like, "No." And it was basically at that point that I was like, never will I ever travel unprepared again. So that's why I really like your channel, because it's all about, helping people get the most out of their vacation, because our vacation time is so precious, especially these days. So I've been to, about 250, I think about 300 resorts.
Wow.
In Mexico and the Caribbean. That's kind of my main thing. I have traveled the world a little bit, but certainly not as much as a lot of my colleagues. But the beach is where I want to be, hence all the photos in the background.
I don't blame you. I grew up going to Colorado a lot, and if my parents are watching, I love Colorado, but something about like warm destinations, just it relaxes me more. I don't know why or how to explain it, but it's just a little bit more of it feels more like a getaway or an escape in a weird way. I'm not sure how to explain that, but I get it 100%. Haven't been to 250 different resorts, but I've been to a couple, and I've really enjoyed the ones I've been to. So that's actually how I found Christine. For the folks who are watching, my family and I had planned a trip down to the Dominican Republic for March over I live in the North Texas area, and spring break in Texas is generally like middle of March. And we had planned a trip down there. And it was a new resort, right? It's a Hyatt Ziva and Punta Cana, the Dominican Republic, brand new property. So there wasn't any good information about what the property was like, except for Christine's videos. I don't know how many videos you have about the Ziva, but it's got to be a lot. But they were super helpful and super informative, and gave me a lot of ammunition or knowledge about the property. So I kind of knew what I was getting into, right? There weren't a lot of reviews on TripAdvisor or anything like that. There were some, but not as many as you might ordinarily find for an established property. So Christine's videos were super helpful for just to give me knowledge about what I was getting into, and booked the trip. Ultimately had to cancel, as you guys probably expected, given all the current global crisis. But your info was super helpful, so I appreciate that very much. By the way, Christine, your YouTube channel is just Christine Turner, right?
I lost you for a second there.
Oh, can you hear me now? While we're waiting, Christine's YouTube channel. I should have a link down in the description. It's just Christine Turner. Again, on her channel, she does a ton of videos. The mini resorts she's visited, she publishes a ton of content, kind of raw, unedited videos of these different resorts, giving you an inside look at, on these properties and destinations. So, I may have lost Christine. We'll wait for her just to come back. So, looking in the comments, I see Canada, Vancouver. Where else are the other folks coming or watching from? I think there's some US here. And to those of you who are coming over from Christine's channel too, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for tuning in.
There we go.
Can you hear me, Christine?
Yeah, sorry, it was like
okay, perfect.
So I totally missed the last part of what you were saying, but I think basically we were talking about the Hyatt, and
yep.
So I was there about a week, 10 days after it opened in November, and I was really surprised because I like to research my vacations, as I said.
Yeah.
And I was looking on YouTube and TripAdvisor, and I mean, I don't hold a lot of value in TripAdvisor. I'm sure the TripAdvisor gods will come back to haunt me on that one. But I mean, look, a lot of the reviews are written by employees and stuff like that. I want real facts. Show me pictures. Instagram had nothing. And I'm like, what are you people doing? So I started doing videos just to share the information. I mean, you take them at face value. I'm having a good time on vacation. Yes, my reviews are going to be a little bit more on the positive side. But and there were some bumps, don't get me wrong. I mean, the pillows were about that thick. But you know what? You roll with it. They've been open 10 days, people. So it's like, okay, my pillow's really not like a pillow. So could we have more? Sure, no problem. Boom, problem solved. You know, like it just depends how you are at dealing with issues like that in a situation. So then we had the opportunity to go back in January. And again, there still wasn't anybody posting videos. So so what was interesting is then I ran into a rather large fan base. It was the most bizarre. It was my 15 minutes of fame. Boom, that was it. Where I'd walk around the resort wearing my silly hat, and people would be like, "Oh, there, I think that's her. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. And my husband's laughing at me. He's like, I can get drunk, you can't. I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm done. But there was a lot of people that came up to me and really appreciated the videos. And that's what it's all about. You know, we're all here just trying to help each other, have a great vacation, have a great experience. And, you know, it was certainly a resort that I loved.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that you'll get to go back again soon.
I think so. I don't know when we can go back. I was looking at August, but I don't know. And I think the resort will be open. I worry a little bit about actually being able to get there on a plane physically. Like I was looking at flights the other day I live in the Dallas area, so naturally I fly American for better or worse, just geographically. And when I put in Punta Cana, there's no results. Like previously it would give you information. Now there's just nothing. So I don't know. I think we've been to the Ziva twice in Cancun, the one kind of there on the point in the hotel zone. Really like that. That's why we had looked at the one in the DR too. So hopefully we'll go back hopefully we'll go at some point. I just can't tell you when it's going to be, unfortunately, but hopefully not too long. I was going to say one thing too. I know you mentioned TripAdvisor. I totally agree. There is you got to wade through a lot of noise. The one thing I like about it, it's kind of what you mentioned. If you go, there are photos that are traveler submitted that aren't like the pretty marketing photos. And I think that is useful because to your point, it's kind of like your videos. It's basically just someone's picture of their unmade up bed or the trash in the hallway or something, which at least it's not like been given the hotel's marketing spin, right? It's a little more kind of as you will experience it when you're there. So that's the one thing I do use there a lot because I find that helpful. But I do agree there's a lot of all the pre-written responses that are kind of marketing speak and respond. I don't like that stuff at all, but there's some good content on there if you're able to find it at least.
Yeah, it's tricky. You really do have to wade through the noise, as you say, and try to look for some commonality. But you know, I mean, I've seen examples where a resort, you know, one that's maybe side by side, and you have one resort who's been there for a long time. This new resort comes in and they're doing incredibly well. And so the
Mhm.
people at the first resort, the staff, are, they're getting shorter hours because there's less people. They don't need to open all the restaurants every night, so they're not
Yeah.
staffing them. And what happens is the employees from those resorts are going in and writing a review on the new resort and saying, "Oh, I had bed bugs. There was, dirt on my plate.
Oh
There was
gosh.
hair in
Yeah.
my food." Yeah, is it true? Maybe. Is it not true? You have no way of validating
Yeah.
it.
You
So,
don't know.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Well, I think so. Your kind of experience and expertise, I guess, leads us to kind of the first thing I wanted to talk about. So, again, kind of the goal of this conversation today is to talk about why you should use a travel agent. What are kind of the benefits and the perks, and how does that help you have a better experience? I want to talk first about kind of during the booking process or at booking, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of between booking and when you actually travel, and then maybe talk a little bit about how to find a travel agent. I will admit, I think I mentioned this to you. I've never used a travel agent. I like to do my own research and dig around, but I realize that's not always the best approach. We don't. I mean, it's there are people who have far more experience and knowledge than me, you included in particular. So I want to talk about what are the benefits and kind of what is so great about it. And I figured we could talk about, again, starting with at booking, right? That's the destination expertise is a big thing. I think that's the first thing that kind of floats to the top for me. And as you mentioned, no one has visited 250 or 300 resorts other than the travel agents, right? So it gives you a ton of inside information and knowledge. So I guess one question I have for you is like, how often are you visiting them? Is that part of your job, I guess, to be doing that research along the way, or kind of what is that process like?
Well, so like I said, our agency is based in Vancouver and
Yep.
Calgary, and we also have some agents that are throughout Canada. But we are a Canadian-based company, and we are all independent contractors. So
Okay.
our business is our business. So if I want to take a trip down to Cancun or Dominican Republic or wherever, that money's coming out of my pocket, and I'm basically investing in my business and in my knowledge. There's a ton of hobby agents out there who,
Mm-hmm.
they woke up one day and they decided they were going to be a travel agent. They don't have the experience, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the training. And we certainly saw in the last 2 months where this became a real issue for people because they were having to cancel their trips and they were stuck. I mean, there's horror stories out there where agents were waiting on hold for 8 hours trying to sort out their clients. I mean, we had a system where we were emailing each other and going, "Hey, does anyone need to speak with Sunwing or some of the other local tour operators?" And we would transfer the calls because that was the only way to get through. Whereas consumers don't have the priority lines. Consumers don't have the relationship. I've got my people in the tour operators that I can email and say, "Hey, John, I need a hand with this file." Boom, it's done.
Yeah.
Whereas, as Joe consumer, unfortunately, you don't have that relationship. So that's certainly a huge asset. And I've rambled and I've lost my train of thought.
No, I mean, that's a great example. I think, I mean, I mentioned I canceled a trip, right, in March, and I had booked it on Costco, which was a good experience. But if things had gone according to plan, it probably would have been fine, but they didn't, which left me in a big mess. And it took me days and days and days. I think I have a video up on it on my channel. I think I called 25 times before anyone even answered the phone. When I would call and a voice message would immediately come on and say, "We're so busy, we can't take your call," and it would hang up.
Yeah.
So you couldn't actually even talk to anyone. So it probably took 25 tries to get someone on the phone. And then I had to wait an hour or two on hold or after the IVR came on to actually talk to someone. Once I did talk to someone, it was fine. But I mean, the process was a beatdown. And I think that's a great example. If things go fine, great. If they go just slightly off track, you may be in a little bit of trouble without an expert, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense. I see the value now after having gone through this crisis, right? I think a lot of people probably.
Well, when things go sideways, you need an expert to help you out. And like I say, we certainly have, for what it is, we've built those connections and we have those connections so we can utilize those for our clients to make everything go. You're losing your vacation. Nobody's happy about that.
Yep.
So let's make that whole process as easy and painless as we can. So that's, something that we help out with. As far as traveling to the different resorts, I've traveled to so many of them and I travel to them repeatedly. I probably am away every other month normally. So somebody's got some serious cabin fever going on right now. Although I was away at the beginning of March, thank goodness. But yeah, I go to these resorts. I go to them on a repetitive basis, especially doing a lot of destination weddings.
Yep.
I want to know what the staff are like. If there's a GM change, a general manager change, you don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes it's like amazing, total improvements across the board, and other times that wasn't a good move.
Yeah.
So it's really important for me and certainly for all of my colleagues. Like we're always traveling and, we're sitting, all these stupid pictures of us on Instagram. Oh, we're working from the pool, working from the beach, but we're still doing emails. We're still talking to our clients.
Yep.
But we're there and we're experiencing the resort so that we know when we say, when you go to the Hyatt Ziva Cap Cana or the Hyatt Zilara Cap Cana, the adult side, from my experience, it's going to be great. Now, everyone has individual experiences and there's certainly been some negative reviews out there, but, by and large, we can only explain, if I like this kind of pizza and you try this kind of pizza and you don't like it, we'll disagree. But at least I can show you the pictures, I can show you the videos, and it's, as you say, not a marketing version of it where it's all prettied up and stuff. Like,
right.
You're going to see it when it's like crazy windy and stuff like that. But it's the real thing.
So you mentioned general managers or GMs. Do you find there are major differences between the operators of different properties? So, for those who are watching, like if you go to a Hyatt in the Dominican Republic or Mexico, it's not operated or owned by Hyatt, right? There's an operator licensing the brand, right? I think it's Playa Resorts for Ziva and Zilara in the Dominican Republic, for example. Do you feel like, is it kind of the general managers who are on the ground that kind of determine what the experience is like, or are those, operators and big brands like Playa the ones who try to kind of set the whole thing apart, if that makes sense?
Well, Hyatt has certainly a large role in that, and Hyatt's not going to allow their brand to be lessened in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But Playa is there to manage things and to run things. So although the GM does also play into that. So you will see slight differences between resorts. But by and large, Hyatt, they're big on the service from the heart. So every thank you is with their hand touching their heart. The drinks are consistently good. The brands are consistent in terms of alcohol brands. The food level is a very high level, that kind of thing. And that's consistent whether you're talking a Hyatt or a Sandals. I get on that Hyatt train because out of all the different brands that I've been to, Hyatt to me has been so consistently good. And, yes, I have won awards. I'll be full disclosure. I have won awards for my sales for them. And people have challenged me or questioned me on my loyalty there. But look, if you've ever written a Yelp review, you write it for a company because you enjoy what they provide or the services that they offer. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to back down from being a huge Hyatt Ziva and Zilara supporter because what they're doing is fabulous. They're not doing it wrong. So,
I agree 100%. I've had a good experience with Hyatt. I mentioned in my last video, I think they're probably my favorite global brand, but I can't use them that often because of just where they're located geographically. For the travel I do often for work, but for leisure travel, they're at the top of my list, and I visited them a number of times. So, that makes a lot of sense. I do think it's a strong brand. They do a great job, especially with the all-inclusive properties. And I think they were one of the first ones into that or heavy into the all-inclusive space. Hilton has a few, I think, that are operated by Playa as well.
Yeah.
Marriott has nothing, but they're building a huge all-inclusive complex, I heard, in Mexico somewhere, but I think it's a couple years out. So I think Hyatt, they did the right thing. They kind of struck first, and I think it's benefited them. They've executed well and done a good job with it, I think. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the way I always explained it to people who weren't necessarily familiar with the Hyatt brand is you've got the Hyatt, which when I used to work for corporate and used to travel, for the first 6 months of the year, every other week I
Yep.
was away. And Hyatt was one of my go-tos, Hyatt in Fairmont, actually. And, consistent high level of service. The food was always good. The drinks were always good. The rooms were always clean. There was really never any issues. I mean, you always have a few bumps here and there, but for the most part, it was great. And what I said is the Hyatt basically said, hey, we've got these great hotels. Now let's try to do this all inclusive thing. But instead of changing our whole model, let's just take all of the food and stuff that we were originally offering, we'll raise the price and we'll call it all inclusive.
Yeah.
And it's worked out brilliantly for them.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I feel like that's a comment. Sorry, there's like I have a bad sun is reflecting off a mirror on the other side of my room, but I totally lost my train of thought. I think, yeah, I do think people argue that all inclusive is more expensive. I don't necessarily disagree. I just feel like it's a good experience. And like, if it creates, if those individual elements come together and create a good package, that's a good experience for me, then that's fine. I'll pay a little bit more or deal with a little bit of more of this or less of that if it's a better experience for me and is more enjoyable and less stress-free if I don't have to worry about being nickel and dime by hotel prices, because hotel food is expensive.
For sure.
One question from the audience, from my daughter. Or my wife, what do you do if someone wants to travel to a resort that you wouldn't recommend? So if it's some off the beaten path destination.
I tend to have a fault of being honest about it. I mean, there are, I'm just for sake of not libeling myself or anything like that, I'm not going to name a few specific resorts, but there are some that always come up as amazing hot deals. And I tell people there's a reason it is coming up as an amazing hot deal. The resorts that are popular, I have wedding couples who come to me and they say, well, I've got a wedding group of 40 people. So what are they going to do? Are they going to give us a bunch of free stuff? And I'm like, no, because they don't need to. You take your 40 people and you say, well, forget it, then I'm going to go elsewhere. They're like, okay, bye-bye, because we got a lineup of 100 people that are waiting to come and stay at this resort.
Yep.
The ones that need the occupancy and are doing the last minute specials, those are the ones where you have to go, I wonder what's going on there. Is the beach as nice as it looks on the photoshopped pictures, or is it full of like sandbags and garbage and seaweed? We've had some issues with that over the last few years. What's the service like? Is there bed bugs? Are you drinking beer only on draft? Whereas you get into a higher end brand like Hyatt and you're drinking, bottled products, that kind of stuff, as opposed to, and this isn't a push, but as opposed to just draft beer. You're not, lunch isn't just food from the buffet trough of burgers that were cooked 4 hours ago and they're sitting in some big bucket. It's freshly made food. And that's really the difference that you get. And so I tend to not be an order taker when it comes to that. If people really want to stay at a resort like that, then that's fine. And that, there's a resort for everybody, and not everybody wants 5-star luxury, and not everybody is okay with 3-star, happy-go-lucky kind of resorts. So, I'll explain to people what I believe the pros and cons are. For example, some resorts in Cabo have just utterly undrinkable wine. But if they're okay with that, maybe they don't even drink. Then, hey, no problem. Go for it. Go fill your boots. Be happy.
And that makes sense. I'm a believer in you get what you pay for, right? And I think it applies for vacations and hotels and anything really in life. I think you get what you pay for. And if it's a cheap place or if there's a killer deal or they're giving you a kickback of sorts, there's probably a reason, to your point, and proceed with caution potentially.
Oh, for sure. Well, and that's the thing that, the other side of it is if I've got a resort that somebody wants to stay at, and for an equal price point, I could get them over to, well, for example, say a Hyatt, I might be able to reach out to my contacts and say, they've booked an ocean view room, but I know some of them are a little bit further back. Is there any way you could push them closer to the beach? Or any other perks that might be available? I mean, I'm hey, if I can get you something bonus or a perk or whatever, a better location for your hotel, giddy up, I'm going to do it because it's going to make you happy, and then you're going to book with me again, hopefully. So
Yeah, so
that's kind of the trust factor.
that's a good question. So I was going to ask you, in terms of kind of the booking process, is that something that's common, like kind of add-ins or credits, or is that something you can get? Or it's, if you're just a layman who's booking on Expedia or something, you're going to get nothing basically, right? You're going to get a base room with a garden view or something on the backside of the resort. I mean, do you think, I know you said you have contacts and kind of these channels that you're familiar with help you manage that. I mean, do you feel like that is a perk or benefit that sometimes you can get a little bit of a credit or a better room or a better view?
Oh, hands down, hands down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not always, and it's not at every resort. But the other side of it is that, we're constantly getting emails and industry news and stuff like that. So you can book the resort on Expedia, and that's fine. But what Expedia is not going to necessarily know or be able to tell you is, there's a lot of construction going on of that new high rise
Yeah.
that's right next door.
Yeah.
So you are not going to sleep. Or that there's a festival that happens every year at a certain time of year, and that's half a mile down the beach,
Yeah.
but it's a rave party, so you're not going to sleep at night. It's things like that, like a lot of knowledge-based benefits that we have, but also for different resorts, again, depending on our relationship and depending on what kind of travel agent programs they're offering, we may be able to offer in-room amenities, possibly upgrades, that kind of thing. But also it's just the guidance, knowing, for example, if you truly want to not have a view of the back of a restaurant, it's knowing the difference between the room categories. And sometimes, specifically with the Hyatt, Ziva, and Zilara Cap Cana, the most basic room category might be better than an upper category. And what's great about them is they actually provide us with really extensive training manuals, so that we can actually know what the resort categories and what the views are, where they're located, that kind of thing. So that helps for sure.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, there definitely are perks on that side. I guess, this may be a loaded question, but I want to ask about pricing. I mean, I simply don't know, like, how, our travel agents always able to get the lowest price, or I guess, how does that work? I really don't know. I don't have a lot of experience in that area. So what is the pricing process like? I mean, is it always going to be cheaper or cheapest, or is it going to be kind of competitive? I guess, how does that work?
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me, but I've completely frozen up again.
I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Must
can
be
you hear
a
me?
high prime right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think everybody's working at home and streaming and doing all kinds of things. I think the internet in general is struggling right now. But can you hear me now? So we'll wait for Christine to come back in just a second. So for the folks out there, if you have used a travel agent, what is the greatest benefit or kind of the greatest perk or advantage, in your opinion, of using a travel agent when kind of planning or booking a vacation? We'd like to know what you guys think and what your experiences have been like.
Okay. Sorry,
Can you
that
hear
happened
me?
again. Yeah.
Hey there. No, it's okay. No problem. I don't know if you heard me, but I was asking about pricing. Like, how does pricing work with travel agents? Is it always the best, or is it always competitive? Or, I feel like part of I struggle because there's so many different channels where you can book and the price is never the same, right? So what is that like, or what is your point of view, I guess, on pricing vacations?
Well, so interestingly enough, in Canada, we are regulated. So if you want to book through any of the tour operators, any of the travel agencies across Canada, pricing is regulated. So if it's $15.99 for an air and hotel package for a 1-week trip to Cabo or Cancun, it's going to be the same price with any travel agency across Canada. I don't know if it is as restrictive in the US. There's certainly there's a lot of different options out there. but certainly with travel agents, we try to be very competitive. We also have a lot of knowledge. So because of that, we're not, the travel agents that are worth their salt are not going to be striving to be the cheapest out there, because we need to make money. And the only way to get around price points is to cut into our commissions. So to Sarah's question about the compensation, basically whatever the price is for the package is our compensation is built into that. Our commission is built into that. So you either pay the full price and the commission goes to the tour operator, or you pay the full price and the commission gets paid to the travel agent. So you're not paying any additional fees. Now, having said that, I suspect once everything is over, you will start to see a lot of agents that are charging fees, simply because there's agents and agencies out there that have lost literally hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the cancellations. So if we have to move to a fee model, then at least we are being compensated for our time. So it'd be interesting to see how things progress. But at this point in time, basically, for the most part, the compensation is paid through the package price, and
but it doesn't cost the customer anything extra, right? If they find the same price in Escapes or on the Sunwing website, it doesn't cost them any extra to use you, right? But they're going to get that extra benefit and knowledge and your experience, right? I think to your point on the pricing in the US, I think it is different. I mean, I when I searched vacations, it's all over the board. I mean, I did a video when I priced my Costco trip, and it was different everywhere. But I think the model is different to some extent. I was going to ask you about that, because I think it seems like in Canada, there's more of kind of it almost feels to me more like the European model, more like package vacations to leisure destinations, kind of through those charter airlines and things. And that's maybe it's a Dallas market and things are different here, but I feel like that's less common in the US at least.
You're 100% right. It is completely different. So when you're coming from Europe, predominantly the packages, it's packaged up. So you have your air and hotel as a package, and they're typically traveling for 2 to 3 weeks, because they're flying for like 12 hours to get there. Canadians, typically it's again an air and hotel package price. Our pricing tends to be negotiated through the hotel contracts, as such that it is more expensive to book just a hotel, land only, we call it. So we package it up, so it's all together about the tour operator. So we do the air and hotel package. In the US, and also we tend to travel as Canadians for a week to 10 days. 2 weeks, maybe not. For Americans, and I'm just totally putting a generalization here, because certainly there's extremes both ways. But Americans tend to go for shorter duration. They tend to spend more, and because you've got so many flights, they tend to put it together that you book your flight separately to your hotel. The other thing is, what I found in my experience of booking both wedding groups and just regular couples from the US, is that predominantly they do not want to put their money at risk. So the hotel portion, they want it to be just like a regular hotel. If you're staying in New York City or LA, they want it to be a deposit or just a reservation, and then no risk full payment until you basically arrival at the hotel. Whereas Canadians, they'll put that right on the line. They'll put usually down a $250 or $300 deposit, and then usually 3 months prior to departure, they will pay full price. They'll pay the full final payment. But it's all very different. Canadians, even here from Vancouver, flying to Cancun, you're not going to get me on a connecting flight. It's just not going to happen. Whereas I bet you've done a connecting flight. On
occasion, I don't know if I don't have to. I mean, again, I live in the Dallas area, and American Airlines flies all over the earth from here. But if you live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, or the middle, New Mexico, I mean, a huge portion of the U.S. is connecting. And I think the Canadian model exists in a few areas. Like Allegiant, I think, does a little bit of that. They'll sell packages, to Vegas from Middle America, in Iowa or something. But I don't think it's as common in major markets. And I think to your point, I think we don't travel as long. Like, I can't, I haven't booked a week-long vacation in a while. It's, 4 to 6 nights. 6 nights feel like rare. And I use a lot of miles and points to book my flights. That's part of the reason why, but I don't know. It's just a different world. I'm not sure it's a different world for the better. It's more complicated, I think, honestly. If I could just work with a travel agent on a single transaction, kind of a Saturday to Saturday trip, that'd probably be easier than me trying to piece together. Because what ends up happening is I end up having to look for hotel nights that are a good price, matching them up with like award flights on an airline, trying to figure out if I come in on Thursday and leave on Tuesday, is that better than coming in on Wednesday and leaving on Monday? It becomes a mess, honestly, and it's almost too complicated. And it takes a little bit of the joy out of the process, I think, if you have to just spend so much time trying to piecemeal this vacation together.
Well, and that's the thing. We're looking at prices all day long, every day. Yeah. So we see the trends. And we know, for example, if you want to book for Christmas, you should be booking that either now or last month. I mean, who knows this year, right? But in a normal year, really, that's how far ahead you want to be booking. Spring break, basically, if you haven't booked by October or September, you're paying full whack.
I also travel. I also plan last minute far too often. I feel like I'm always booking, honestly, like a couple weeks out. Part of it is because my work schedule it varies a lot, and I travel a lot for work, and I never know when I'm going to be somewhere. But I need to plan. I've made a commitment or promised myself to plan further in advance because it only benefits you, I think, if you do that. So,
of course, it gives you longer to look forward to it, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
this is the first time. I mean, I've got some cruises that are lined up on my calendar, which they're canceling by the day.
Yeah, I know.
But
I believe that.
Normally, I would have 3 or 4 trips lined up, and there's nothing better than your last day of vacation. You're having your cocktail, looking at the palm trees, you're looking at the pool, and all these people who are like, oh, we just got here, what should we do this week? And you're thinking, oh, great, I got to get up and go to work tomorrow. There's nothing better than thinking, oh, but in 2.5 months, I'm off again.
I know. That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true. I think we don't travel a ton, 3 or 4 times a year, but it's always last minute. So there's never something on the horizon to look forward to when you're leaving. It's depressing and you go back to work, and then I start planning a new trip pretty quickly usually, but it's not always booked before that. So that's a good point. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned kind of being in Canada brings up a question. So how does someone go about finding a travel agent? Is it best to look for someone that's destination specific or someone in geographically near you? I don't think that matters in 2020, but just curious what your point of view is.
Well, I think to Shauna's question, I think if you're looking for something as exotic as Africa or Galapagos or, anything like that, I think you really want to look for somebody who's been to those places. And trust me, like a lot of agents have been for a variety of reasons. I mean, I've got family in South Africa and Botswana, so I've actually been several times. And shout out to them if they're watching. And so, I think you really want to pick somebody who's going to specialize in what you're doing. If you're doing a destination wedding, you do not want to be dealing with a person who's never left their hometown. I mean, seriously, how would they even know? So that's, those are factors that come into things. You want to be dealing with somebody who knows what they're talking about, who has access to resources. I don't know everything about travel, but I'll tell you what my colleagues do, or they know about other things. So if I want to book Italy, I couldn't tell you. I had no idea, none. But I have other colleagues who they've already been this year, so we reach out to each other, and that's where we help each other. So to find somebody is tricky. A lot of it's just going to be trial and error. You really want to take a look at, what's the person's background? Where have they traveled to, that kind of thing. And honestly, interview them. Why would you trust a $20,000 vacation or $20,000, which might be for a family of 4? But why would you spend $20,000 without taking the travel agent for a test drive? I mean, you don't buy a car for that without taking it for a spin. I mean, you've got to know who you're dealing with. And there's certainly resources out there for you to validate that they know what they're talking about. And also, if you're going to work with them on an ongoing basis, as we say with destination weddings, we're usually in with them for about 9 months. So if
Right.
we don't hit it off right at the start, we're just going to clash for the
The
next
whole
9
way.
months.
Yeah.
So it's got to be a good working relationship. So that's the most important thing. But definitely, interview them.
I mean, that makes sense. I would think. I mean, my default would be destination specific, right? Or for a wedding or something specific like that. I think, to your point, I don't think it matters if the person's down my street or if they're a local agency. I'd rather have someone who knows the place I'm going to or want to go to very well. So, can you? Maybe a weird question, but can you sell in the U.S. or can you sell to U.S. customers or can you help book U.S. customers in Canada?
Yeah, it depends where you're from. So there's some trickiness about that. But because we cannot sell insurance to you, at the end of the day, I think that's one of the most critical pieces. That I would say as an American, you're probably better to deal with an American travel agent because they also know some of the specifics of insurance and liability and all that kind of stuff. So we do, predominantly we deal with Canadian-based clients, but that doesn't mean to say that we don't have some that are worldwide. I mean, there isn't a single. I've probably had 1 or 2 destination weddings, but of all the hundreds of people, thousands of people that I've sent to destination weddings, it's very rare to have them only be from Canada.
Yeah.
And yes, I do like the beach. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's my daughter asking if you like the beach. She likes the beach too. You can see, I can see the picture in the background of the beach view. So that makes sense. I think, so you're saying you can't sell the trip insurance portion to U.S. customers. Is that right?
Yeah. There's a couple of suppliers that we have that have their own insurance, kind of like, I want to say travel impressions. For example, they've got like a cancel for any reason kind of coverage, that kind of stuff. So with them, we can use those companies. Because then you can cancel. But for example, and it is somewhat limited. Like cruise lines actually tightened things up a couple of years ago. Probably 5 or 10 years ago now. Geez, where you can only sell to one geographic region. So I could, for example, sell a Holland America cruise to you, but not to my sister-in-law who lives in England. So it's they're restricting it, and that's because pricing is different everywhere you go.
Yep.
So right from the hotel to cruises to flights, everything is geographically independent.
Okay, I mean that makes sense. It's too bad I don't live in Canada, or I would definitely give you a buzz, and maybe I will anyways. But I don't know. We'll see. Want to see if there's any.
I love talking travel.
Yeah, no, I do too. This has been really great. I really enjoyed this. And I feel like I was excited to bring you on because you are from Canada. It's just a different experience. And I think I like learning what travel is like for other people and people in other countries or continents and regions. And I think, as I mentioned, as we talked about earlier, I think the model is pretty different in Canada with kind of the package. And again, that exists in the US. I just don't think it's as common. So that was really interesting and really informative. I was just checking to see if there's any final questions. Just do you like the beach? And the answer, we know the answer to that. Well, I guess we can wrap it up. Do you have any other thoughts or any other perks or benefits of using a travel agent that we haven't talked about or haven't mentioned?
I'm sure I will about 2 seconds after we end the call.
I'll have 10 more questions too, right after we hang up. Yep.
Yeah. No, if I think of anything else, you know what I'll do is I'll put it in the comments below the video.
Awesome.
But the main thing is our relationship with the hotels. Especially nobody ever wants to think of things going sideways. But hello, look at what's just happened. Things went sideways. So that's a really important reason to use a travel agent. And also, like I say, for example, if you're booking a Hyatt property, if I book it for you, then you are going to get an in-room amenity. So, it's just little things like that if we can give you perks, we will. The perks don't do anything if they're just sitting there not being used. So
right. Well, I think the value proposition is clear to me, and I think there's so much more in addition to the disruption and issues, but I think what we're going through just highlights the value even more. So I appreciate you hopping on. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, if folks have not subscribed to Christine's channel, just search Christine Turner, or I also have a link down in the description. Also, if you feel like liking this video or sharing it with your friends, I would appreciate it very much. But thank you all for joining, and I guess we will see you in the next live stream. Christine, any final comments before we close?
This was a lot of fun, and thank you so much for inviting me to your channel, and I'm looking forward to your next videos.
Hopefully it comes out sometime in the near future. We'll see. Awesome. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.